Alright, welcome back. So in this video, we are going to see how we can use Mongo, how we can connect to Mongo, and like how we can delete things, add things, update things from a database using our Node.js file, right? And that's basically the kind of use that you will have most of the times for Mongo, right? So let's start with that. First off, I'm in my basic directory, the web dev course, right? Inside this, I'll make a new directory by the name of databases. Then I'll cd into that directory. Great. So now I'm in here and I have nothing. So first of all, I'll do npm init, and I'm just doing this because I'm used to doing it, but we're actually not going to make this an express app, so it doesn't even matter, right? All right. So now I'll just do touch, and this is kind of the only file that we'll have in here, right? Because this will not be an express app. What this will be is a simple JavaScript file that we'll run down here from here by writing node app.js, right? So first of all, if we want to communicate to Mongo using Node, we'll have to use a Node package which is known as Mongoose, right? So we'll install that, and the spelling is this, Mongoose, right? With an E. So we'll let that install for a moment. Yeah. All right, so it's done. Great. So the next thing that we need to do is use Mongo inside our JS file. Great. So of course, the first step is always requiring, right? So const mongoose is equal to require mongoose. Excellent. So now the next thing is, to actually connect a database to your app and use it, you will have three statements that you just need to have before that, right? For the setup of the Mongo in your file, you'll need to write three statements. After that, you can do whatever you want, right? So I'll list the uses of those three first, right? So first is connect to DB. Next is make schema. And last is make model, right? So first is connect to DB, right? So that is basically always a single line. You can copy this. Then it will be mongoose dot connect mongo / localhost, and I'll leave this as for now. And then here you'll give your database name. So let's say your database name is first app. And this actually needs to be mongodb, right? So this will be mongodb / localhost and then / first app. And there's one more thing that we need to add to this, and for that I'll run the Mongo daemon once. I mean, because this is a goon, then I'll have to check that. Yeah, so the port is 27017, which is kind of the default port whenever you're running Mongo. Right. So you'll do :27017 here. Excellent. So this is basically the connecting to the DB line. So what's happening here is a new database by the name of first app will be created, and if it's already present, then we'll connect to that database. Otherwise, this will be created, right? And now we are using that database. The next is making a schema, right? So what exactly is a schema? I'll write that first and then I'll explain. So that is basically const. Let's say we're doing this for fruits, right? So I'll do fruit schema is equal to mongoose dot schema, and then inside there you give an object. So what this object basically is the structure of your data, right? And I know the first question that will come into your mind as soon as I write this schema, the content inside this object. but I'll answer that in this video itself, don't worry, right? So this will be, let's say we want to have the fruit name, then that will be name, right? And that will be a string. So what we give in the schema is basically the name of the tag that we'll be using in the dictionary, and then its type, right? That is string here, right? The next would be color, and that would be a string too. And let's say we are keeping count of something, so we'll also have a number, or we'll have like count number. So now I've defined my schema saying that all my fruits will have a name, which will be a string, a color, which will be a string, and a count, which will be a number. Now the first question that comes into mind is that isn't Mongo a non-relational database? And wasn't it a property of non-relational databases that our data can be as flexible as we want? And that is actually true, and that is still true. That is not altered by this. How? Because the only reason for making this schema is that we are giving a structure, like, this is something that most of the fruits will have in common. You can choose not to give any of these for the fruit, right? You could not give the count, you could not give the color, it's your choice. And that would not throw any errors. Even if you're doing that for only one fruit and rest of them have the count, it won't matter. Or if you're adding something to one of them which is not in the schema, no issues, right? You can do whatever you want. But of course, if you are making you're making a database of fruits, then it's not viable to have like different keys and different names in different places. It's always like good to have a structure to anything, right? But the point is the structure isn't rigid. You can do whatever you want, right? So that is why basically we have a schema. Now the last step is making a model, right? And the model making is basically by doing const, and here I'll do fruit. Now notice the names that I'm giving, these are like put the same names right now, and I'll tell you why this was actually done. Then I'll do mongoose.model, then I'll do fruit, and I'll do fruit schema. Okay, so this is my model line. So what just happened here? So what we are doing is we are making a constant named fruit, and we're doing mongoose.model, by which all the methods that we'll use in Mongoose, right? So after this line, we can come inside the fruit. So basically after this line, we can do fruit dot find. We can do fruit dot create, right? We can do fruit dot delete or fruit dot update. So you can do anything inside this fruit now, right? And that's basically the use of this model. So this fruit now has all the methods that you needed. Now notice I've also written fruit in here. And is it your choice to put anything you want in here? Well, yes, it won't technically make a difference, but logically it does make a difference. Why? Because you might have noticed that we have given the database name here, but we have not given the collection name anywhere, right? So what's the collection name? So this is basically what is used to make the collection name. And you always give this first letter capital and singular form of what you want your collection to be. So basically, if we are giving fruit like this, then our collection will be named fruits with the small f and plural, right? And it makes plural really well. It doesn't like, if you enter person here, then it won't make persons, it will make people, right? So it's smart in that scenario, and whatever you write in here, the first letter is made small, hence you need to give it capital, right? And this is made into plural, and that is made in the collection name. So here the collection name will be fruits, right? And that is basically just so you know the structure. It's not like we're going to use db.fruits inside this, right? We're not going to do that, but you should know what collection you're putting data into, right? Of course. So by writing these three lines right here, we have now basically done our whole thing, done our whole connection to the database. And these are the kind of lines that you'll always have. This is the line that you'll have once in your whole code, right? And then you'll have a schema for all the different types. So let's say I want to have a post, a user, and a comment, like in the Blogify. So I'll have a post schema, a user schema, and a comment schema. And then I'll model all of them separately, right? One would be post, one would be comment, and one would be user. So this way now we can use this fruit variable to actually do all the Mongo methods that we need to do, right? So now let's just simply start by doing that. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to make 4 methods here, 4 functions, right? And I'll call them one by one so that we can see the use, right? So one will be to insert an element. Next will be to update an element. And the first, alright, so after this, we'll have the find an element. Find an element. And the last that we'll have is delete an element. So we'll see the methods for doing all of this, right? And I'll make a function for all of them. So const insert. The reason that I'm doing this is basically so that I can call them one by one and we can see their use separately, because if we are inserting, updating, finding and deleting at the same time, of course we won't see any difference, right? And the only thing that we're going to do here is console.log them, right? Great. So first of all, before we even start, we can start writing the code without this, doesn't matter, but just so we don't forget later, you need to run your Mongo in the background, mongodb in the background. So just open a new tab, new terminal window by going to window and then this, and then just type mongodb in here, right? Great. And leave that running in the background. We don't have to touch that now. Great. So now we have an insert, which is a arrow function, and I'll do fruit dot. So the method in Mongoose is known as create, right? So I'll do fruit dot create, and then inside here we'll give the object that we want. So instead of making that in here, we could also do like this, and we could do name and all that, but we're not going to do that. We'll make the object outside. Let me make this const new fruit is equal to, and we'll make the object here, right? Excellent. So we need to have a name, a color and a count. So let's say the name is apple. The color is red. The count is, it's a number, so you don't give it inside strings, right? Let's say 25. This is our inventory. So now I'll give fruit.create, and inside here the first argument that you pass is basically the new fruit that you want to create, right, in your database. And then next you'll have a callback, right? And that callback will have 2 arguments. Error created fruit. So what's basically happening here is, I forgot to put the arrow, right? So what's happening here now is, this line will try to create a new fruit, right? And this will return something to this. So if an error was encountered while creating the new fruit, then the error will get a valid value. So what we need to do is, we need to do if error console.log error. Alright, and the next we have the created fruit. So the created fruit will have a valid value once this function has run successfully. So if everything was successful and there was no error, then we'll get a created fruit, which basically contains all the details about the fruit we just created. So you can imagine it would be just this thing along with an underscore ID, which is assigned by Mongo. So then I'll do console.log created fruit. Right. So now what we can do is, first of all, let's run this and see if this is working. So nothing happens yet, and we get a couple of these deprecation warnings. So you'll encounter a lot of them as you code along, right? And I actually knew this would come, but I want to show you how you could get rid of this real quick, right? So it actually tells you exactly what you need to do. It says current URL string parser is deprecated and will be removed in a future version. So what they're saying is that the syntax we're using was fine until a few time ago, but now some newer syntax is coming. So we need to add some small additions to one of our statements to make our code eligible for the newer syntax. So it says pass option use new URL parser true to mongoclient.connect. So it's basically saying that inside this mongoose.connect, we need to pass a second argument, which will have use new URL parser true. So now I wrote that from here, right? Use new URL parser true. So now this deprecation warning should not come again. So I'll do Control C. I'll do node app.js. And this time we only get one warning, which was the second one, which we had not fixed, right? So it's telling us to pass unified topology true to the Mongo client constructor, which is basically this again. So we'll do a comma and you do use unified topology true. And now if we refresh, we should not get any warnings. And we don't get any warnings, right? So that's great, excellent. So now we have like connected our Mongo without any issues. And the reason that you don't actually need to know what these are doing, even I don't know what these are doing, right? And that is because this line worked without even the 27017. It worked in a earlier version of Mongo without any warnings and without any errors. But then they made some updates due to which writing things like this became kind of a good practice and compulsory kind of, because if you need to avoid these kind of warnings, right? Most of the times. So they gave a whole list of the things that you need to do here. They gave you like 10 or 13 properties that you need to set to true, and then you will never get one of these warnings. And hence you do not need to study what they actually mean. You can just remember that, okay, this is to be done. Otherwise, you can see from down here and add it as and when you run your program. Great. So enough of that. And now what we need to do is we just need to call insert. We'll call insert. And now if I do, and one thing that I'll do after this is, anyway, this will work fine. So I'll do node app.js. So we see one thing has been created which has been console.log. We don't have any error, meaning that the error was null. Hence, we have the name apple, color red, count 0, version 0, ID something that got returned by Mongo. So this is coming from here, right? Excellent. And just if you want to check that if it has actually been added, we can go here. We can wait for the terminal to start. Then we can type in Mongo. We'll check from the shell if it has actually been added, right? Then I'll do show DBs. You can see I have my first tab DB here. So it does seem like it's worked. Switch to DB first tab. Now I can do show collections. It says fruits. So it's another indication that the data was added. Now the last thing that I can do is I can do db.fruits.find. So this will now print all the fruits that are present inside this. And we see that we do have an apple by color of red and count of 25. And if you compare these two IDs, they will be the same. I'm actually not going to do it, of course, but if you want to, you can, right? So great. So we have added an element inside our collection, right? And then I call that again. So we have some data to work with. And I'll call that yet again. Great. So now we should have like 3 things inside of this. I'll run this again. So we have 3 fruits inside of this, right? Great. So now we can stop with the insert. Our insert is working fine. Or I'll comment that out so that you can have the code later if you want. Alright. The next is updating an element. So let's say I want to do update. So I'll do const. I'm making this function of my own. Again, I don't actually need this in practical applications, but I want to show you one function at a time. That's why I'm creating the function. So now I'll create, I don't need to create a new fruit here. What I need to do is I need to do fruit dot update one. Let's say I want to update only one, and then we'll do update many too, right? And update one, inside this, again, I'll have three arguments now. First will be the thing that we want to find. So let's say that is name apple. Excellent. So we want to find all the first thing with the name of apple. Then we need to do set, and we need to then give, let's say we want to change the count 26, right? So this is our second argument, basically telling it what to update, right? And then last thing that we'll have is the similar callback saying error and updated fruit, right? And again, this will have a fat arrow. Great. So inside here, again, I can do if error. This is actually really similar to the previous one now. I'll do console.log error. Then I'll do console.log updated fruit. Great. So now this should work. And to test that out, I'll have to do update down here. Now I'll run node.app.js. It says n1, n modified 1, okay 1, right? So there was some issue in the recording, so I've the only thing that I've done is I've run this again, right? So now we can go in here and we can do db.fruits.find, and we see the count has been updated to 26, right? And that's basically because we are checking by name and name is not changing, and hence this one gets selected every time, and the count is changed to 26. Excellent. Now the next thing we can do is actually we can change this to update many. And if I run my node again, and now if I go here, I do db.fruits.find, I see all of them have been changed to 26. So that's how update many works. Excellent. So yeah. So this was basically the update function, right? We can comment that out. The next is actually find, which is the easiest. This will be find element is equal to, and in here you will just simply do fruit.find, and this can also be find one and find many, by the way, right? And that's actually good practice, but we're not gonna do that for now, right? And if you give an empty object in here, or you don't give anything, then it will return everything, right? So I'll give an empty object and then I'll do error fruits. So alright. So the next thing that I can do is I can make this fat arrow, and then I can do if error console.log error, and otherwise I can do console.log fruits. Excellent. And now I'll go down here and I'll call find element. And it has been printed. The array has been printed very well. So we have got the things that we needed. Excellent. So find is working too. These are all the things inside our database, as you can see. So I can remove find. Now I can do const delete is equal to, and then I'll make a fat arrow. Delete is actually a keyword, we cannot use this, so I'll use delete element. And now I'll do fruit dot delete one for first, right? And then I'll give name apple. Great. And then in here we'll do error just. You could also have a deleted fruit in here, and but that doesn't actually make any sense. Once you've deleted something, you might or might not want to do something with it, but you do have the option, but we can leave that for now. So I'll do if error console.log error, and then I can do, let's say I do find element here, so that we can get the elements from here. We can find them and get, right? So I'll quit my console in here, and I can now call delete element. So now if I run app.js again, I see I only get 2 entries back because one of them has been deleted. And if I run this 2 more times, these both will be deleted too. But the thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to change this to delete many. And due to this, now we should not get any output when we are running this. And you see we get an empty array, meaning all of them have been deleted. Excellent. So this was like a basic tutorial to actually modifying your database from inside your Node.js file. Now you can imagine what we could do inside a post route. What we would do is we would like create a new, if we want to create a new post, we would do this thing right here, right? And if you remember, we are already sending the data from rec.body. So new fruit would be rec.body, and we would do fruit.create, this same thing. And this way, the thing that we've entered in our form will be added to our database. Don't worry, we're going to actually do this in a later video. But I'm just like, if you got that, then it's really great. If you didn't, then we're going to do that anyway. So don't worry. Great. So these were all the basic functionalities that you might need. This is CRUD, CRUD. Excellent. So yeah, so that's basically the Mongoose, and you'll get a lot more practice with this, so don't worry about it. And I know we have seen a lot of syntax here, a lot of new syntax, and it was overwhelming for me too when I started, but eventually I got used to it, right? And you will be writing this all the time, and then you will be like, this is really easy. Excellent. Yeah, so that's all for this video. I'll see you in the next one.